We are going to continue with lecture 3 for characterization technique. We are going to start off with the XRD basics. Let me tell you this, that XRD is a very important characterization technique that we do. This is basically considered as a confirmation technique for any kind of material, especially in the nano field that you basically synthesize. And in case you are doing a project in your third and fourth sem, you're definitely going to use this instrument in the lab. Okay, so this is the basics, and we are going to concentrate more on XRD, and we might be having a number of lectures on this, but today I'm going to concentrate more on the solid state physics part. I'm sure all of you have your solid state physics even in your degree level. So in case you don't remember some of the concept, you can obviously go back and revise, but I'm going to just give you a small brief on the solid state part that we should know before we can proceed with XRD. But what's the exciting part in XRD is that once you understand XRD, you are going to analyze a lot of data, real life data. You see, there are a lot of materials. Let's consider an example, any kind of nanomaterials that we have. Now, if it is unknown to you, can you identify that material? Now, in most of the cases, yes, there is basically a database, and then you can do an XRD analysis, okay, X-ray diffraction technique. And then once you get that data, you can compare it with a standard data, and if it matches, then you definitely know what kind of material you are going to study. Okay, so using this software, which is HiScore Plus, which is not a paid not a free software, it's a paid software, belongs to the company Pananalytical. Okay, they also construct XRD machines, and an XRD machine in general will cost you near 1 crore of rupees. Okay, that's probably one of the lower models. If you go to higher end models, the price will be even higher. But using this software and using the data, you can actually find out phase. You can identify the phase. So that's phase identification. You can also know the lattice parameter. I hope all of you remember lattice parameter from your solid state physics. We usually denote it by A, B, and C, and of course the crystallite size calculation. Okay. There is one more thing that we can do using this software is called the profile fitting. So basically, when you have the data, you need to smooth out the data. Okay. So if you need to smooth out the data, you do something which is called the profile fitting. We will do that when we actually use the software. So in the due course, I'm also going to show you how to use this software to analyze an XRD data. Okay. We are also going to see a very rough idea of Rietveld refinement. Now there are some theoretical parameters which actually governs the, or you can say the parameter which is there within the system that governs the peak position or the XRD data. Okay, now that can be also done theoretically, and we can actually match it with the experimental data and determine some of the parameters which otherwise cannot be directly determined. Okay, so basically a Rietveld refinement method is used to refine the crystal structure of the model of a material. Now it can be used for quantitative phase identification. Okay, so you can use a theoretical base to identify the phase. You can identify the lattice parameter and compare it with your experimental result, and then see if the material that you say and what the theory says are same or not. Okay, the crystallite size calculation can be done, and you can also determine the atomic position and occupancy. So sometimes it becomes difficult without advanced characterization that we determine what is the position of the atom. But if you use a Rietveld refinement method, you can also find out what is the position of the atom by comparing it with the experimental data. Okay, so but we're going to go into these things later, much later. But before that, X-ray diffraction, the word diffraction should ring a bell because this is something which you have studied in your lower classes. And when we say diffraction, I think one of the most famous experiment you remember is nothing but the Young's single slit experiment. Okay, so what we have is, if you have a number of wavefronts here, and basically it comes and gets and interacts with this a very small opening which we call a slit, we are going to get basically a spherical wavefront. Okay, if you remember this. Okay, if you remember this is a spherical wavefront, and if you basically consider a screen, you are going to get some diffraction pattern where at the center you are going to get maximum intensity, and as you keep on going on the left or the right, the intensity is going to drop. Okay, so this is basically what is happening in a diffraction, and this one what we call as the central maxima. Okay, so that is a diffraction. Now diffraction is actually a special form of scattering, because the scattering may take place in any direction. Diffraction will usually take place in at a certain angle. Okay, So when light is scattered by a periodic array, now you have a system, okay. Let's say you want to analyze a system, a nanomaterial. A nanomaterial will be composed of number of atoms. Now these atoms, if it is crystalline in nature, will be arranged in a regular pattern, okay. I think you are sure about these things because solid state physics you have studied about these things. Now these patterns or these atoms will scatter that, okay, that X-ray, it will be scattered and it will be, in other words, be diffracted, okay. So it will be there, and this arrow will have a long range order. Definitely it should have a long range order, else it's not crystalline, and it will produce constructive interference at specific angles, okay. And so that will give part to the rise to the diffraction pattern. So if you remember constructive interference, if two waves are there which are constructively interfering, okay, then obviously the resultant intensity will be high, okay. On the other hand, if we have two waves which are exactly opposite in phase and then they interfere, you are going to get a dark part, okay. So this is what is happening here, okay. This is what is happening here, and if you have a bright spot, this is what is happening here, okay. So this is the pattern that you are basically going to get, okay. So that is what is diffraction is all about. I hope all you can recall that, okay. Now what happens when light is actually scattered by electrons, okay. In that matter we are just talking about light here, but we can talk about the electromagnetic waves, okay. So the electron in an atom will coherently scatter light, okay. So there's something to do with phase, okay. We can regard each atom as a coherent point scatterer. So each of these atoms will scatter the light, and if they are arranged in a regular pattern, the light is going to come from different atoms and going to interfere constructively, okay. So what happens is the strength at which the atom scatters the light is proportional to the number of electrons around the atom. I think that is quite obvious because light is basically an electromagnetic wave, and if there is an electron, okay, which is also charged, it is going to scatter that light, okay. So if there are more electrons, the scattering or the intensity of the scattering is going to get affected, okay. That is what is meant by this statement. The atoms in this crystal, now the atom in a crystal is arranged in a periodic array. Now as soon as you say something is a crystal, the chances are that yes, it is actually arranged in a periodic array, and thence it can diffract light, okay. The wavelength of X-rays, however, are similar to the distance between the atoms. So if we have got a set of atoms, okay, if a set of atoms, obviously this might not be up to the scale, but let's just try to understand it from understanding point of view. The distance between this is actually comparable to that of X-ray, okay. So that is what is meant by here, distance between the atoms, and the scattering of the X-rays from the atom will basically produce a diffraction pattern, okay. So which will contain the information about the atomic arrangement within the crystal. Now if you consider any kind of system, let's say any nanomaterial, okay, for example, two different materials will have different kinds of atomic arrangement, so the diffraction pattern will also be different. So if we can study those diffraction pattern, we can identify what kind of element or material it is, okay. But if you consider something like an amorphous material, for example, let's say glass is amorphous, right? It doesn't have a long range periodic structure, okay. It do not have, please remember this, do not have a long range order, and so they won't produce a diffraction pattern. So your exam question might be, a objective question might be, what is the difference between a crystallite and an amorphous material? So in a crystallite material we have got long range order of the atom, and in an amorphous material we don't have a long range order of the atom. There might be some order, but it will be very or will be for a very short range. So let's do some comparison here. So if you consider something like let's say silicon dioxide, there are three different phases of silicon dioxide which are identified, okay. So there are three phases of SiO, there should be a 2, okay, SiO2, and that is nothing but silicon glass, okay, oxide glass. So you know silicon oxide is basically the compound by which glass is made of. And then we have got quartz, which also has silicon dioxide and crystallobalite. But please remember, all three of them are composed of silicon and oxygen, but their positions are different. So quartz and crystallobalite are two different crystal structures. What happens is the silicon and the oxygen atoms are arranged differently, okay. Both have got order, okay. They are no doubt crystalline in nature because they have got long term order of the arrangement of silicon and oxygen, but the point here is that they are not arranged in the same way, okay. So the difference in the crystal structure is different, seen in the diffraction pattern. So if someone says, okay, well, how do you identify phase, okay. So if you have got silicon dioxide and you want to identify the phase, if you get something like this, you say that okay, the phase is quartz, and if you get something like this, you say the phase is nothing but crystallopelite. Okay, but there is also a possibility that there is a mix of both of them. Then what will happen, if this is a peak here, you might also observe, okay, let me take this as a red. Okay, in this peak, if there is a mixed phase, they will be observing a peak here also. Okay, sorry, this is not at the position. Yeah, this is the position. So you'll observe a peak here also, which is not observed in quartz. So you can straight away understand that there is one more phase which is mixed, which is nothing but cristobalite. Okay, so these are the three different phases, and don't worry, these things are all standardized. Okay, if you are designing a new material or you are synthesizing a new material, you have to do an altogether an XRD analysis separately. Okay, but that is always good to do something new. Okay, but you can look into this, and this is a very simple point. In case you have got any confusion, just pause the video, look into the graph clearly, you will understand the concept very clearly. Okay. Okay, so what happens is, as I told you, if the structure is different, the diffraction pattern is going to be different, just as in case of quartz and cristobalite. So what happens here is the atomic arrangement of the material. So I'm not going to go into the detail of how the atoms are arranged, but I'm just going a small view. This is basically a unit cell of that, and you basically have the quartz here, okay, and then this is the cristobalite. Now please remember, in notation, usually if something is red in color, okay, in notations, these are always representation of oxygen. Okay, so this is representing oxygen, and these are nothing but representing silicon here. Okay, of course, in both the cases, here also this is the one, and this is nothing but oxygen. Okay, so these are the structures, the atomic arrangement. So they are different, obviously, and hence they are also going to give you a different XRD pattern. Okay. So let's look into this crystallite material. And now the crystallite material, as I told you, is characterized by long range order. Okay, please remember this term, long range order. Okay, so what is a unit cell? So this is a unit cell. Okay, this is a unit cell, and if you repeat it a number of times, okay, you'll be basically getting the crystal structure. Okay, so it's unit cell, and then you get the crystal structure. Okay, so this is one, this is one, okay, this is two, and this is 2, right? This is 2. So this is what you get. This is obviously how it looks. Okay, not from the atomic scale, obviously. This is something which you can see with your naked eye. So what happens here is the unit cell contains maximum symmetry that uniquely defines the crystal structure. So it will definitely have maximum symmetry. Okay, and then the unit cell might contain more than one molecule. I think this idea is quite clear to you, because you all remember something which we call as lattice points. Okay, so there are certain points on which the atoms might take the position. Okay, so these might be, these are the points at where the this doesn't look like a point. I'm restricted by technological differences here. Okay, so these are the points where we can have the atom. So it might be a single atom, or it might be a number of atoms which is actually a part of the molecule, and so on. Okay, so what happens is, in a quartz unit cell contains 3 complete molecules of Si. So if you consider just a quartz unit cell, okay, let's go back and look into the quartz unit cell. You will basically have 3 complete molecules of silicon dioxide. So you will have 3 complete molecules of silicon dioxide in this quartz cell. Okay, so the crystal system will basically determine the shape of the unit cell, and the lattice parameter will determine the size of the unit cell. So if you go back here, if you look into this unit cell, you will be okay. We have more diagrams later. I think I can show you there. You know what is lattice parameter, crystal system. You already know about these things. But if we repeat this unit cell in all dimension, we can actually fill the space, which will actually make the crystal structure. Okay, and it will actually produce the macroscopic grain or the crystals of the material. Okay, so this is very simple. Next, what we do is we are going to go into a bit more technical term. Okay, I think you've already heard about Brevis lattice and all. So what happens is, the crystal structure focuses on the symmetry elements, okay, to define the atomic arrangement. So these atomic arrangements are symmetrical in nature, and there are a number of symmetry values that, or the symmetry points that we should know. Okay, and the symmetry in the crystal structure is basically a product of energy minimization in the atomic arrangement. Energy minimization, by the term we mean that whenever you are considering a system, it should be in the minimum energy state, that so that it's stable. Okay, so if we, even if we simulate something, okay, we need to put it in the minimum energy state. After that only we can carry out any kind of simulation program. So first step is to minimize the energy. Now the symmetry in the crystal structure often produces symmetry in material property and behavior. So if there is a crystal structure which I know, and I know that this is symmetrical in nature, the same symmetry is also repeated and actually copied to the main material property or the macroscopic behavior of the material. Okay, so if you consider something like a quartz, the crystal system that we have is hexagonal. I'm sure all of you know this. I'm not going to do this because else it's going to be a very long session. Okay, let's not go into too much of solid state physics. Let's just keep it minimal to the point of understanding that is needed for understanding XRD. Then the Brevis lattice that we have is primitive. I'm going to give a brief about this later. And then we have got something which we call as the space group. Okay, so if the symmetry group is called space group, there are 230 space groups when we consider a 3D system. Okay, so we can't remember obviously all of them. So most of the times we use a table to actually find out to what space group a particular material belongs to. Okay, and then definitely we have got the lattice parameter. So if you remember, this is A, this is B, and this is C. Okay, so this will actually constitute the volume because this is a 3D system. So definitely we have got 3 positions. Okay, and then we can also find out what is the atomic position of silicon and oxygen, and that is actually given by the x, y, and z coordinates. Okay, so if you are not able to find out these by using any kind of experiment, if we use that Rietveld refinement which I told you at the beginning, we can use that and find out what is the exact atomic position of silicon or oxygen. How can we find it out? Theoretically possible. Okay, but anyway, we are not doing it right now. Okay, so let's go back to a bit of basics again, and we'll talk about Brevis lattice now. So if you remember Brevis lattice in solid state physics, if you have followed Kittle's book, that is very much there at the beginning of the book. Okay, so what is a lattice? A lattice is a framework. Okay, it's not really a real point or the real atoms. It is just the point which defines what will be the position of the atom. Okay, it is actually traced in 3-dimensional space, and it is a periodic array of points on which a crystal is basically built. Okay, so Brevis lattice will show identical points, and it will produce 14 types of such regular patterns. Okay, I have a list of that in the next slide, and there are 14 space lattice, and these 14 space lattice are basically called the Brevis lattice. Okay, so when you go to the solid state physics, at the very beginning you say that okay, what are the points for a crystal structure? That means a periodic arrangement of atoms can be made, and that is what is called the lattice. Okay, and then we have got, let's say for example, a silicon dioxide. Okay, what position the silicon should be, what position the oxygen should be. Okay, this will basically give you a basis. Okay, and then we consider this lattice points and the basis, and we combine them together to give you the crystal structure. Okay, and how are these can be arranged, okay, spatially in 3-dimensional space, which will give you something which is called the Brevis lattice. Okay. So then before we proceed to Brevis lattice, we should also know something about space group. So group, point group, space group actually is a very huge topic. It obviously cannot be assembled in this single slide, but anyway, from this minimal understanding point of view, we are just going to look into few points. Okay, so any of the ways in which the orientation of a crystal can be changed without seeming to change the position of its atoms, and that is what is called the space group. Okay, so if you remember, I think you have done it before. Okay, there is something which we call as translation. Okay, there is something which is called translation. Okay, and then we have got the reflection. Okay, and then we have got the inversion. Okay, and then we have got the rotation. So these are the some of the operations that you can do. I think you already remember reflection. If you can have a mirror image of both the sides, so if you have a structure something like this, okay, and then okay, this diagram might not be very correct, but anyway, if you just break it into this part and then this, and this resembles each other, so that means it has got one reflection symmetry, right, and so on. So similarly you can talk about translation and all, but please remember this translation is for lattice points. Okay, so sorry, there's something which happened right now. Okay, so this translation that happened is because of the lattice points. Okay, but this reflection, rotation, and inversions can be done it for the entire system. Okay, so these changes, what happens, may involve displacement of the whole structure along a crystallographic axis, and the point group operation. So basically these reflection, rotation and inversion are all point group operations. Okay, so of the rotation about an axis, reflection in a plane, inversion about a center, and sequential rotary inversion. Okay, so in fact in inversion, I hope you remember. Okay, this is something which is different here. So if you have it the origin, let's say this is your 0 and this side we have got a point r. By inversion we mean that on the other side there will be the same point at a position of minus r. That is what is inversion is all about, right? And then translation, reflection and rotation, I think these are quite obvious to you. And these things were actually demonstrated in the year 1890. So it's more than 100 years now that people know about these things. Okay, in fact 1890, 1990 and 30 years again, so it is 130 years. So 230 distinct combination of these changes are possible, which has already been demonstrated. Now 230, these 230 will actually be a combination of reflection, rotation and inversion together. Okay, and all of them combined together to give you 230 distinct combination. And then these 230 combinations are basically the 230 space group. Please remember this is in 3D. Okay, so this is in 3D, so don't get it confused with 2D. Okay, so this is also important from your entrance point of view, how many space groups are there. So there are 230 in 3D. Okay, so a crystal can be assigned to one of these groups. So if you consider something like a quartz crystal, okay, how do you assign it? Okay, so if you look into this quartz, and this is the space group that we have, 2 3 2 2 1. This is one of the 230 space groups that we have. Okay, so any crystal can be assigned to these groups. Okay, after the arrangement of the atom is studied. So you have to study the arrangement of the atom so that you can assign a space group to it, and that can be done by using the X-ray crystallography. Okay, please remember, if I consider any space group, let's say P2NMM or something like, let's go back to this, the example which I've already given, this one. It doesn't mean that quartz is the only element under this. There can be other elements also under this. Okay, so that's there. So if you look into the symmetry elements, these are actually used to define 7 different crystal systems. I think already you know. So it's easy to remember this. This is cubic, tetragonal, hexagonal, rhombohedral, orthorhombic, monoclinic and triclinic. Okay, and then what are the Bravais lattices that are possible? Okay, so Bravais lattices are primitive. I stands for body centered, F stands for face centered, C stands for base centered, and R stands for rhombohedral. So please remember these notations. Okay, in case you don't remember this notation, I think it gets difficult sometimes to follow if you look into a table. Okay, so P stands for primitive, I stands for body centered, F stands for face centered. For a cubic system there will be 3 Bravais lattice and the symmetry would be nothing but M3M. And then I think you know already about this A, B and C. So if you basically consider a 3-dimensional figure here, okay, and then we have got the alpha, beta, gamma, and then, so these are the 3 axes. So this might be A and this might be B, okay, and this might be C and so on. Okay, so this might be C, okay, and so on. And then we have got the angles with respect to each other are nothing but alpha, beta and gamma. This is anyway important from all point of view, not only for this class but even for your solid state physics class, entrance physics and also on. Okay, so remember these things. Okay, but before we proceed further, let me just go give you a brief or a proper understanding of what do you mean by a primitive cell. So this is primitive. Okay, that means that all the atoms are actually at the corner. This is a unit cell. Okay, we are talking only about unit cells here. Okay, unit cell. So if you consider the unit cell here, okay, unit cell here, and then P is primitive, so we don't have any atoms within the cell. Okay, it's only at the corner, so that is basically a primitive. Everything else is non-primitive. I is denoted usually notation for body centered, so you can see that there is one atom which is at the center, and that is why it is called the body centered. Okay, so this is I. And then next we have got something which is called the face centered, F. And if you remember from your solid state physics, this will be there at the 6 faces, 1 2 3 4 and then 5 and then 6. Okay, sorry, this is not there, obviously this is not there, this is not there, this is there, 6. Okay, so you got 6 at the faces. Okay, and then we have got the C, which is the base centered. So base centered means we have got one atom at the base. Okay, one atom at the base. Okay, so we have these 2 atoms at the bases. Okay, so these are the bases if you look into any kind of hexagonal structure, let's say. And then we have got the rhombohedral. Now in the rhombohedral, the part is, so you can look here that A and B is there. Okay, here we have got A, B and C. So this is A, B and C. What are A, B and C? lattice parameter. Alpha, beta and gamma are also nothing but a part of the lattice parameter. And then we have got C, A and B here, and then we have got A, B and C here. Here we have got A, B and C, but when we consider a rhombohedral structure, it's basically nothing but all A, B and C are equal and all of them are inclined at the same angle alpha. Okay, so that is basically a rhombohedral structure. Okay, so I think we should not go with Miller indices because this will be a bit too much because we also have exams. So we will stop here. Okay, and I hope that this basic solid state physics is clear to you, which we actually need for XRD analysis. And in the next class we are going to continue with this. Thank you.